Before tonight's story begins, welcome to No Sleep Stories. I'm Thomas, and every week I bring you chilling tales of unexplained encounters, haunted highways, true inspired horror, and the kind of stories that stay with you long after the lights go out. Tonight's story takes us down a lonely stretch of highway, where one ordinary drive turns into something no one has ever been able to explain. Whether every detail is true is up to you, but many who have traveled these roads swear they saw something watching from the darkness. So dim the lights, put on your headphones, and settle in. If you enjoy realistic horror, paranormal mysteries, and immersive late-night storytelling, don't forget to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new nightmare. Now, take a deep breath, lock your doors, and let's begin. Story 1. Turn back now. The GPS that knew too much. Turn back now. Turn back now. That's what my GPS kept repeating over and over until it didn't sound like a warning anymore. It sounded like a plea. I've been driving trucks for 14 years, hauled everything from produce to propane, coast to coast. I've handled icy mountain passes and midnight breakdowns in Coyote Country, but I've never once been scared of my own rig, until last winter, somewhere along the Colorado-New Mexico border. The job was simple, a one-night haul from Denver to a remote outpost near the town of Wheeler, tucked up in the hills like a forgotten memory. The shipment, sensitive medical supplies, boxed, sealed, no questions asked. Dispatcher said it was urgent, time-sensitive. The payout was double, so I took it. Left Denver at 11:45 p.m., aiming to arrive by dawn. The route was supposed to be straightforward, I-25 south, then cut off onto County Road 314. But before I even reached Castle Rock, my GPS recalculated on its own. Faster route found. Estimated arrival, 4:22 a.m. It blinked twice. Then the route line changed, highlighting a smaller road called Hollow Creek Pass. I'd never heard of it, but I was curious, and I've always trusted the GPS. The turnoff came just before Monument Hill, a dusty, unlit path marked with a faded green sign. Hollow Creek, 17 miles no services. The sky was clear, air crisp. A light dusting of snow made everything glow beneath the moonlight. I turned onto the road. That was the last normal decision I made that night. The pavement quickly gave way to gravel. My headlights barely cut through the dense pine trees that leaned overhead like they were trying to touch each other. No cell service, just me, the hum of tires and the soft, robotic voice of the GPS. At first it was quiet, peaceful even. Then about 30 minutes in, the GPS spoke again, but not a direction, just two words. Turn back. I frowned, looked at the screen. The map hadn't changed. I was still on the line, still en route. Maybe it was a glitch. I tapped the screen. It flashed once, then again. Turn back now. Louder. I turned the volume down. That's when the radio turned on by itself. White noise, followed by a garbled voice. I swear it said, "You're almost there." I stopped the truck, engine running, looked around. Trees, nothing else. No animals, no wind, just stillness. Suddenly, the GPS blinked rapidly. The screen turned black. Then a single line of white text. "You weren't supposed to come here." I rebooted the device. It came back on, same map. But now the ETA was gone, replaced with recalculating, looping, looping, looping. I floored it. Didn't care about the gravel or the cargo or the contract anymore. I just needed out. But the trees looked wrong, like they'd shifted, rearranged. I passed a twisted oak on the left. 2 minutes later, I passed it again. Same broken branch, same crow perched on top. The road was looping, literally. That's when the fog rolled in. thick, blinding. I could barely see 10 feet ahead. And then the headlights caught something up ahead. A woman, standing in the middle of the road, white dress, long black hair, face turned away. I slammed on the brakes, horn blaring. She didn't move, didn't flinch, just slowly walked backward into the fog. Gone. The GPS crackled again, this time in a deeper voice. Turn back or stay forever. I grabbed the unit and yanked the cord, but it kept glowing. No power, no connection, still glowing, and still talking. You've been here before. You left something behind. I was done. I hit reverse, spinning the wheel, trying to turn the rig around in the narrow space. It took 3 awkward shuffles, but I managed to face back the way I came. Or so I thought. I drove for 20 minutes and ended up right back in front of the same oak tree, same crow, same damn fog. Only now there was another vehicle parked ahead, a semi-truck, white, old, dusty, covered in frost. No driver inside, door half open, interior lights dead. But inside was something that made my blood run cold. On the passenger seat, a GPS, identical to mine, still on, still blinking, repeating, turn back now, turn back now, turn back now, over and over, and etched into the inside of the windshield, scratched in from the inside, were the words, we tried. I backed away, got back in my own truck, threw the gear shift into neutral. I sat there for 10 minutes, hands on the wheel, trying to slow my breathing. Then suddenly, a new voice, female, soft, calm, from the GPS. I'll guide you, but you must not look in the mirrors. The screen changed, now showed a glowing blue line, a route I didn't recognize, cutting diagonally through the woods. Desperate, I followed. For the next 20 miles, I didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't look anywhere but forward, because outside the windows, something moved alongside me, shadowy shapes, just out of reach. And behind me, in the mirrors, I saw flickers of red and a face, mine, smiling. Finally, after what felt like hours, the trees began to thin. I hit asphalt, a real road. A green sign passed overhead. County Road 14, Wheeler Junction, 9 miles. I pulled over and wept. When I reached the delivery point at 6:04 a.m., an old man in a parka stepped out of the shack and handed me a clipboard. Didn't ask why I was late, didn't mention the mud or scratches on the trailer. Just looked me in the eyes and said, "You saw her, didn't you?" I nodded. He just sighed. That road should have been gone years ago. Some GPS units still think it exists, but it doesn't lead anywhere real. You're lucky. Most don't come back. I smashed that GPS with a hammer when I got home. Bought a new one, different brand, never updated, but last week it spoke again, out of nowhere. Midday, clear highway. Hollow Creek Pass detected. Would you like to reroute? I didn't answer, didn't touch it, but the screen glitched once, then whispered, "We remember you." Story 2, The Unholy Cargo. What's in the back isn't meant for this world. They told me not to open the doors. No matter what I heard, no matter what I felt, no matter how bad the smell got. It's just temperature sensitive, the man in the black suit had said. Don't stop for more than 15 minutes. Deliver it by sunrise. And like a fool, I agreed. Name's Wade Riggins. Been driving long haul since '09. Diesel in my veins, as my daddy used to say. Mostly worked the Southwest Corridor, Texas up through Louisiana, sometimes the Carolinas. Nothing fancy, just me, the road, and the hum of a Kenworth W900. Last December, I was between gigs, stuck in Laredo. Poured myself a double at a roadside bar when this guy walks in. Black suit, too clean for the place, shoes like mirrors. Said he had a delivery job, paid $5 grand, cash. No questions asked. Should have walked away. Should have said I don't haul mystery meat or cartel nonsense. But 5 grand was 5 grand. The container was already loaded on a flatbed, 40 feet long, matte black, no markings, no latches, only one electronic lock blinking red, connected to some internal timer. My job? Drive it to a drop point near the Mississippi wetlands, just south of a ghost town called Bellshade. No escort, no GPS coordinates, just printed directions. I asked what I was hauling. The man just smiled. That load you carry ain't for this world. That line stuck with me, like a thorn in my brain. The first 100 miles were fine. Smooth roads, empty lanes, country music on low volume. I told myself it was probably some classified tech shipment or decommissioned lab gear. At 3:17 a.m., I stopped for fuel outside a place called Red Hollow, a one-pump shack with flickering neon and a bell that jingled like a funeral chime. I was checking my tire pressure when a man stepped out from the shadows. Long coat, wide-brimmed hat, Bible in hand. His eyes were milky white. I thought he was blind. He pointed at my trailer and muttered, "You shouldn't carry that, son. You shouldn't bring that thing east." I forced a chuckle. "What thing?" He walked closer. I saw the silver cross around his neck was tarnished black. "That load you carry ain't for this world." He handed me the Bible, a cracked leather thing worn by time. "Page 91, he whispered. I flipped it open. Underlined in red, "He who delivers the vessel of darkness shall never see dawn again." I left without another word. Didn't even fuel up. That's when the knocking started. Soft, rhythmic, from the container. One knock every 10 seconds. I turned the music up. Louder, didn't help. At mile 246, the GPS started glitching. The map spun. Coordinates jumped. My location pin hovered over nothing. Then the power cut out completely. Just static on every radio band. Silence. Then a voice, not from the speakers, from inside the cab, right behind my seat. "It's getting colder back here, Wade." I hit the brakes so hard my chest slammed the wheel. No one there. Cab was empty, but the temperature gauge was dropping. Outside 43 degrees. Inside the trailer, dropping from 70 to 50 to 30. Around 4:05 a.m., I passed a deer in the road. Or what looked like a deer. It had too many joints in its legs. Moved wrong. Twisted. Eyes like black marbles. It stood still as I passed. But in the mirror, I saw it start walking after me. No running, just a slow, deliberate stride. Mile after mile. Near the edge of Bellshade Swamp, my headlights cut through a patch of fog thick enough to swallow sound. That's when I noticed the smell. Burnt meat, sulfur, moldy water. The air felt heavy, and my ears popped like I'd driven up a mountain. I parked by the coordinates the man gave me. There was no warehouse, no receiver, just an old collapsed church, half swallowed by the swamp. Bell tower leaning like it was ashamed. The electronic lock on the container began to beep. It turned green, unlocked itself. I stepped out, heart thudding. I didn't want to open it, didn't want to know, but I had to finish the job. I climbed the steel ladder, threw the doors wide, and nearly screamed. There was no cargo, only a hole, a perfect black circle carved into the center of the container floor. It pulsed like a heartbeat, and from within it rose voices, hundreds of them, crying, begging, chanting in a language I didn't know. Something rose from the darkness, a shape. It had a face, mine. I don't remember leaving. Next thing I knew, I was 70 miles north, parked at a rest stop with dried blood on my hands and mud up to my knees. My logbook showed a 4-hour gap. The container was gone, but the Bible was still on my seat. Flip to a new page. Scrawled in red ink, "You are the vessel now." That was 6 weeks ago. Since then, every mirror in my house cracks. I haven't slept more than an hour a night. And every time I close my eyes, I hear knocking. One knock every 10 seconds from inside my skull. I quit trucking, sold the Kenworth, burned the clothes I wore that night. But last week I got a call. Block number. The voice? Same man from the bar in Laredo. He said, "New load, Wade. This one's heavier, but it remembers you." Then he laughed. And in the background, I heard the knocking. Story 3, the frozen hall. It shouldn't be this cold. I've driven through every kind of weather this country can throw at you. Blizzards in Wyoming, flash floods in Louisiana, dust storms that blind you dead in your lane. But nothing prepared me for cold like this. Not in the Mojave, not in the middle of the goddamn desert, and not when the sun was burning the road at 114 degrees. My name's Derek Malone. Been trucking for 16 years now. I've hauled everything from frozen beef to Christmas trees to classified military gear. This was supposed to be just another job. A rush order medical shipment picked up from Phoenix, bound for Fresno, standard reefer run. Or so I thought, until the trailer started getting colder than it should have and wouldn't stop. I picked up the load just outside Phoenix, Industrial Park, barely marked, one security guard in a booth who didn't even make eye contact. All I got was a clipboard with instructions and a red tag seal on the trailer doors. Said Class 7 temperature controlled, do not open. Okay, I've seen that before. Vaccines, organ transplants, no big deal. Reefer unit was already pre-cooled to 10-degree heaters when I hooked up. Seemed overkill, but hey, maybe it was rare blood plasma or something. I did a once-over of the rig. Everything checked out. Reefer humming steady. Tires fine. Freight weight was light, barely 2,000 pounds. Should have been an easy ride. The weirdness has started about 50 miles out of Phoenix. I was headed west on I-10 when I noticed the cold creeping in. First, the AC felt unnecessary. I turned it off, but the cab stayed chilly. Then I started seeing condensation form on the inside of my windshield. In Arizona, in July. Outside, it was a 109 degrees. Inside the truck, I could see my breath. I pulled over at a rest stop near Tonopah to check the reefer. The digital display blinked. 20 firm. That's not right. I tried adjusting the temperature, but the buttons were unresponsive. Frozen like they were stuck in place. I put my bare hand to the side of the trailer. Instant ice burn. The metal felt like the side of a deep freezer. I could hear creaking from within, like the cargo was shifting or settling. But this wasn't meat. It wasn't liquid. It was something else. About 150 miles into the haul, I passed a way station that was strangely empty. No troopers, no rigs, not even a car. Just a sign flashing, closed, maintenance, and a single orange cone tipped over in the road. That's when I saw her. A little girl, standing by the shoulder, maybe 8 or 9 years old, wearing a white dress that fluttered in the hot wind. Only, it wasn't fluttering. It was still. Dead still. Like she was standing in a snow globe. I slowed the truck, unsure if she was real or a heat mirage. She turned her head slowly toward me, and I swear to God, her eyes were completely white. No irises, no pupils, just frost-covered orbs. She didn't speak, but in my head I heard something. You're driving Winter west, but Winter doesn't want to go. The road bent, and she vanished behind the scrub brush. I checked my mirrors, no one there. The temp in the cab, 40 moments ago. And falling. I stopped at a truck plaza in Needles to warm up, just for 15 minutes. That's all. I left the rig running. I couldn't shut it down. It wouldn't start back up if I did. The battery was losing charge fast, like something was draining it. Inside the diner, the waitress handed me a coffee and stared out the window. You bring that ice box? She asked. I froze. You mean my reefer? She shook her head. No, I mean that thing behind you. You should leave it here. What? She looked me dead in the eyes and said, it's not your load anymore. Back on the road, I passed Barstow. The asphalt shimmered like molten glass. My external thermometers said 117 Durham, but the trailer was now reading 44 days. The wheels were frosting over the tires in the desert. When I turned the wheel, I could feel a kind of resistance, like the cold was pushing back. That's when the voices started. Not on the CB, not in my head, from inside the trailer. Low, whispering, like a crowd humming behind steel. And they were chanting in reverse. That's the only way I can describe it. Words that sounded like speech played backward. I called dispatch. They didn't pick up, just static, then a single click. Then the reefer unit died, but the temperature kept falling. I pulled into an abandoned gas station just east of Bakersfield. It had a busted pump and a payphone from the 70s. Everything else was sun-faded and cracked. I opened the glove box looking for my emergency phone. Instead, I found a thermometer. It wasn't mine. Old brass rusted around the edges. It read 60 degrees. I dropped it and backed away. That's when the trailer door latch clicked, all by itself. I didn't open it. I should have. Maybe if I had, things would have gone differently. But I was scared, not of what was in there, but of what might want to come out. I turned the engine and headed for Fresno. That's when I noticed the fog. Thick, rolling. Too dense for the dry basin this time of year. It wasn't coming from outside. It was billowing from under the trailer. Fog so cold it frosted the roadside brush. I turned on the high beams, and in the beam was a figure, not the girl, something taller, wrapped in the sheets of ice. It looked at me and smiled. I swerved, nearly jackknifed, and came to a stop sideways on the road. Steam hissed from the hood. I climbed out, coughing, dizzy from the drop in air pressure. The heat outside was gone. The desert night had turned to tundra. Snowflakes began falling. I looked behind the rig. Footprints, not in the snow, but under it, like someone was walking just beneath the surface. I left the truck there, in the middle of the road, walked 15 miles to a ranger outpost. Didn't say a word about the cargo, just told them my rig broke down. They sent a tow. 3 days later, they called me, said the truck was gone, not stolen, just missing. Tire tracks led 60 feet into a dead end, then vanished. No trailer, no cab, no signs of a struggle, but that's not the worst part. A week later, I was watching the morning news. They showed a clip of a freight camera outside Fresno. Traffic cam footage. There was a truck coming down the off-ramp. My truck. Same cab. Same plate. Same trailer. The footage was time-stamped 3 days after it went missing. Behind the wheel was me. At least it looked like me. He didn't blink, didn't wave, didn't slow down. Just drove right past the camera and into the fog. The trailer doors were frosted solid and one handprint showed on the glass. They never found the truck, but yesterday, parked outside my house, was a new reefer unit, same trailer, no cab attached, engine idling. Inside the cab, a clipboard. New delivery, same route, same instructions, and one handwritten note at the bottom. Some hauls you never finish, some loads you carry forever. And this morning, I swear I heard the reefer start up again, even though it has no fuel and the air is getting cold again. Story 4. The metronome. It wasn't mine, but it followed me. I'm not losing my mind, not entirely. That's what I keep telling myself every time I hear it. The ticking, that steady, perfect beat, like a clock, like a heartbeat, like something counting down. But it's not mine. I didn't bring it. And I swear to God, I never loaded a metronome onto my rig. My name's Calvin Dent, 41 years old. Been a long-haul driver for nearly 2 decades now. Lived in my truck longer than I've lived in any one apartment. The road's the only thing that makes sense to me anymore. Ever since the accident last fall, icy curve, flipped trailer, fractured skull, I've had trouble sleeping. The doctor said I might experience some disorientation, even a little sensory echoing. I figured they were just covering their asses. And truth be told, I didn't think much of it until last month, until the ticking started. The job was simple, a load of office equipment from a warehouse in Chicago to a new tech office in Savannah. Nothing exotic, mostly box furniture and sealed crates. Light load. I'd make good time. The first leg was quiet. I made it down past Indianapolis before the sun dipped low. I parked at a rest stop off I-65 for the night, did my walk around, double-checked the seal on the trailer, and crawled into the sleeper. That's when I heard it. Tick, tick, tick. At first I thought it was just the sound of my cooling engine or maybe something dripping outside, but it was too even, too mechanical. I searched the cab, nothing. I opened the back of the trailer, expecting to find a loose strap smacking something metal. Instead, right there on top of one of the crates, perfectly centered, sat a wooden metronome. Old-fashioned, walnut casing, polished brass pendulum, ticking loudly. I stared at it for maybe 30 seconds. It just ticked away, like it belonged there. But I hadn't seen it during loading. I hadn't signed for it. It wasn't part of the manifest. So I did the only logical thing. I tossed it, walked it across the lot and dropped it in a trash bin, came back, shook my head, and figured it must have been a prank, or maybe someone was screwing with me. The road messes with your mind sometimes. I crawled back into the sleeper, closed my eyes. Tick, tick, tick. The sound came from the passenger seat. The metronome was back. This time I didn't touch it. I left it sitting there, ticking softly, while I drove through Kentucky the next morning. Each hour it seemed louder, not in volume, but in presence. Like the ticking was vibrating in my spine, like it was matching my heartbeat. Like if I skipped a beat, it'd stop too. I tried ignoring it. I even turned the radio up, but the ticking synced with every beat of the music. No matter the song, no matter the rhythm, it followed, it mimicked. I pulled over near Lexington and checked the trailer again. All crates intact. No other items. No signs of tampering. But the crate where the metronome had first appeared, its wooden paneling now had a perfect circle, singed into the side. Not burnt, not painted, just marked. A symbol, a loop, like a timer, coiling inward. I started losing time. Around Chattanooga, I blinked, and I was 30 miles farther than I remember driving. My log didn't match the mileage. My phone said one time, my dash another. I stopped for gas. The same gas station I always used on this route, but the colors were wrong. The name was different. The clerk didn't recognize me. First time here? He asked. I stop here every trip, I said. He shook his head. This place just opened last week, man. We ain't even got Google reviews yet. The metronome sat on my dash, ticking faster now. Tick, 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 tick. The dreams came next. Or maybe they were memories. Or maybe both. I'd be asleep for 10 minutes and dream of years, walking empty highways, searching through fog, trying to remember something just out of reach. Each time I woke, the metronome was closer. I mean that literally. It moved. Once it sat on the dash. Then it was on the console. Then on the edge of my bed. I didn't see it move. I just knew it had. At a truck stop in Macon, Georgia, I met someone who noticed it. I was getting coffee, and this old man, skin like paper, cataract eyes, limped over and pointed to the metronome sitting next to my cup. "Don't let it finish," he rasped. "What? Every tick is a memory. When it stops, you'll have none left." I laughed nervously. "You been sniffing diesel fumes, old man?" He leaned in. His breath was ice. "It doesn't count time. It devours identity." Then he walked away, out the door. When I chased him out, there was no one there. The lot was empty. Surveillance footage showed me talking to no one. I tried to destroy it, crushed it with a tire iron. It shattered, wood, gears, brass. I swept the pieces into a bag and tossed them off a bridge over the Ocmulgee River. I drove straight through to Savannah. When I opened the trailer at the delivery site, the cargo was untouched, except one crate was now open. Inside, the metronome, whole, ticking slowly. I left it, refused to sign the final release, told the client to get someone else. I got back in my cab and started driving home. But home wasn't there. I swear I followed the GPS. I swear I took the same road I've taken 100 times. But every exit was wrong. Every highway number was inverted. At one point, I passed the same diner 3 times from 3 different angles. It had different names each time. I called my sister. She didn't answer. I called dispatch. Line disconnected. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize my own eyes. The metronome was now ticking with my heartbeat. I knew it. I felt it. Tick, thump. Tick, thump. Then I felt it skip a beat. I lost 3 days. I checked the logs. I'd driven 700 miles in a circle. My onboard dash cam showed footage I never remembered recording. Me driving calmly, talking to someone in the passenger seat. There was no one there, but I was smiling, laughing, telling stories I don't remember living. The metronome was on the seat beside me, ticking in the background. When I tried to delete the footage, it wouldn't erase. The files kept duplicating. Now I live on the road, not because I want to, because I don't know how to stop. I've tried quitting, tried leaving the truck, leaving the state, leaving the metronome behind, but it always finds me. Once I left it in the freezer of a motel mini fridge. Next morning, it was in my boot. Another time I buried it. Next rest stop, there it was already ticking inside the glove box. I don't know what it wants, but I think I know what it does. It's recording me, not just time, but who I am. And once it finishes, once the last tick falls, there won't be anything left. No stories, no memory, no Calvin Dent, just silence. Or worse, another driver, another life for it to count down. So if you ever hear ticking in your cab and you didn't bring it, don't let it keep time. Don't listen to the rhythm. Don't acknowledge it. Because once it starts counting, it won't stop. Not until you do. Story 5. The last call sign. You're the only one left. They say the road can be lonely, but no one tells you what happens when it's only you. My name's Eddie Granger. Been hauling long-haul freight for over 20 years. My world's always been asphalt, diesel, and dispatch on the other end of the radio. I never needed much else. Family's long gone. Friends come and go. Out here, my company is the hum of the engine and the calm, clipped voice on the CB saying, "Keep rolling, 14B9. That was me, Unit 14B9. Until last Tuesday, when dispatch told me I was the last one. It started like any other run. I'd picked up a load in Kansas City, something labeled proprietary equipment, bound for an unlisted facility near El Paso. Sealed tight, docs stamped with a black mark like some military contract, but the pay was good, and I never asked too many questions. I was cruising south on I-35 just after midnight. Clear skies, cold, not a soul on the road. I'd switched to the auxiliary CB line because my regular frequency had gone quiet for hours. That's when I heard it. Unit 14B9, do you copy? It wasn't the usual voice. This one was softer, Female. No call sign, no background static. This is 14B9, go ahead. You are the last active unit on the system. Confirm identity. I paused. What the hell does that mean? All other units are off-grid. Decommissioned? Lost. You are the only one moving. Then silence. I laughed it off. Probably a prank, some ham radio nut messing with channels. But then I checked the dispatch board. Every truck I normally saw, gone. No names, no tags, no chatter. Just active units. 1. Mine. I tried reaching out on other channels. Breaker, breaker. Anyone read me? Nothing. No voices, no white noise. Just the low mechanical hum of a dead band. I figured it had to be a glitch. Maybe the servers were down. Maybe they upgraded the network and left me behind. I kept driving. But then the exit stopped making sense. Exit 112 should have led to Amarillo. I know that stretch like the back of my hand. But the sign read, exit, no return. I thought it was vandalized. Pulled over at the next rest stop. No trucks, no people, no vending machines, no lights. Even the stars looked wrong, like someone smeared the sky. I got back in the cab and checked my mirrors. The rear of my trailer was flickering, like bad VHS tape static. I blinked. It was normal again. Dispatch called me again at 3:17 a.m. Unit 14B9, identity check. This is Granger. What the hell's going on? Timeline transition in progress. Please maintain route. What do you mean timeline? What transition? Keep moving, Eddie. You are the last observer. Your position is critical. That's when I realized she knew my name. I never gave it. The road stretched on, but the mile markers stopped counting up, just stayed stuck on 66. No matter how far I went, and every time I blinked, the scenery changed just slightly. Trees moved, sky turned deeper blue, signs written in symbols I couldn't read. I passed the same overturned pickup truck 4 times. Each time, its headlights were still on and the airbag still deployed. I swear, the 4th time someone was watching from inside it. I tried to turn around. GPS wouldn't reroute. Maps app crashed. Compass spun in circles. The truck itself started resisting turns. Steering sluggish, like I was driving through molasses. It felt like the road wanted me forward. Always forward. I pulled over and opened the back. Cargo was still sealed, but the air inside was ice cold. Colder than the outside by at least 30 degrees. Frost lined the inside walls, and one word had been scratched into the frost. Observer. I radioed again. Dispatch. What am I observing? What the hell am I carrying? Eddie, your role is essential. Please remain in transit. For how long? Until transition is complete. Define transition. The closing of your loop. All other threads terminated. You are the anchor. I slammed the radio down. I was done playing whatever this was, but I didn't stop driving because now there were no exits, only road. The next day, I think it was day, I tried to pull into a way station. Empty, like it had never opened. There was a wall of fog beyond it, thick, gray, not natural. From it, I heard voices, familiar ones. My father, my first dispatcher, my dog, Whiskey, who died in '09. I nearly stepped out, until the radio blared again. Do not exit. Observer must remain. I began to forget, not suddenly, but like paper left in the rain. I'd reach for coffee and forget how I liked it. I'd hear a song and not know the lyrics, though it was my favorite. Photos on my phone were now blank. Messages erased. Contacts gone. Only one remained. Dispatch priority. I never saved that contact. Then came the logs. One morning, maybe morning, I checked my logbook. Entries for trips I never took. States I've never driven through. Entries going back decades before I was born. All signed E. Granger, then one final entry. Final call sign engaged. Observer stable. System closing. I saw another truck on the horizon. Hope surged. I flashed my brights. Honked. They didn't respond. As they passed, I looked into their cab. The driver was me, but older, pale, eyes sunken. He didn't look back. I tried stopping once, killed the engine, got out, sat on the pavement and screamed. No echo. The world just stood still. Then dispatch called, "Granger, you've reached the transition boundary. You may exit." I looked up. A sign stood ahead. Disengage point. Final observation. I drove toward it. Cab silent. Radio dead. As I approached, the world shimmered. The road peeled away like film. The sky blinked off, revealing a dark, endless void, filled with truck lights, floating, circling, like stars. Each one pulsed. Each one was another driver, another observer, frozen, watching, and I felt it then. I wasn't meant to deliver anything. I was the delivery, a carrier of memory, of data, of closure. Now I drive a road that doesn't exist. No state, no city, just movement. Each mile strips away a little more of who I was. I remember writing this, but I don't remember why. Only one message loops now when I turn on the CB. Unit 14B9. Identity confirmed. Final observer online. You are the last. And I drive. Because there's nothing left to do. Because I'm the only one left who can. Story 6. The Blinking Woods. Thursday, November 16th, 2023. Clearwater National Forest, Idaho. Written from the perspective of trucker Thomas Reed. I've driven trucks for nearly 16 years, seen every stretch of road between San Diego and Seattle, from the blinding salt flats of Utah to the silent blizzards of Montana. You'd think after that long, the road stops surprising you, but I'll tell you something straight. The moment you stop fearing what's out there is the moment it swallows you whole. This happened on a Thursday night, November 16th, 2023. It was supposed to be a routine haul, furniture supplies from Spokane, Washington, down to a warehouse just outside of Boise. Nothing special. I'd driven the route a dozen times, usually through US Route 95, but my dispatcher sent me something odd that night. Take the 344 cutoff, she said. Supposed to shave off 45 minutes? Local forestry road, still paved, mostly empty. GPS files uploaded to the truck's nav system. I should have said no, because I've never heard of Route 344, and after what happened, I don't think it's supposed to exist. I left Spokane around 6:30 p.m. The first 2 hours were quiet, clear skies, dry road, a thermos full of black coffee. Around 8:45, I saw the turnoff, just past an unmarked mile marker. The sign read, ID 344 South, restricted access, use at own risk. The letters were faded, half the sign was rusted through. I paused. Thought about calling the dispatcher to confirm, but the road looked fine, recently paved even, asphalt smoother than the interstate. I shrugged it off, told myself I'd driven worse, and turned the wheel. Almost immediately, the air changed. You ever feel like the atmosphere just tightens? Like something unseen clamps onto the space around you? That's what it felt like. The trees here weren't normal evergreens. They were tall, thin, with dark gray bark, and leaves that shimmered slightly even with no breeze. 10 minutes in, I lost radio signal. Not unusual for back roads, but still unsettling. I turned on a podcast, tried to distract myself with some trucking horror stories. Funny how ironic that seems now. It started around 9:42 p.m. I was deep in the forest. The road had narrowed. No painted lines anymore, just wet black tar winding through shadows. My headlights barely cut through the trees on either side, and that's when I saw them. At first I thought they were deer, dozens of tiny white lights reflecting back at me from the forest edge. Animal eyes. That's what I told myself. But they didn't move. They didn't blink. I kept driving, maybe another quarter mile. That's when I noticed they were on both sides now, hundreds of them, and they were synchronized. They blinked in unison, open, shut, like someone flipping a light switch. I slowed the truck, flicked my high beams on. The eyes didn't glow, they absorbed. Light hit them, and they went dark. But then they blinked again, not randomly, not like a field of deer. These things blinked at the exact same time, like a signal. My skin crawled. I tried the radio again. Static. I picked up the CB mic. Any truckers on 344 tonight? Anyone else seeing something weird in the trees? Silence. I gripped the wheel harder. The temperature dropped. I could see my breath in the cab, even with the heater blasting. At 9:56 p.m., I pulled over. I don't know why. Maybe I was trying to prove to myself it wasn't real. Maybe I just wanted to take a piss and get back to reality. I stepped out with my flashlight. As soon as my boots hit the gravel shoulder, the blinking stopped. Every single pair of eyes, gone. I pointed my beam into the trees. Nothing. Just brush, branches, and darkness. I exhaled, laughed nervously, thought I was being paranoid. I zipped up, stretched my legs, and started back toward the truck. And then I saw it, a wooden sign nailed to a tree, maybe 20 feet into the woods. It was old, weather-beaten, barely legible, but I read it. Do not look into the trees. I froze. Suddenly I felt it, pressure, not just on my chest, but around me, like the air itself was thicker. I whipped my flashlight around. That's when the blinking started again, but now they were closer, 10 feet away. Blink, 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 hundreds of eyes, perfectly timed, and they were surrounding me. I sprinted back into the cab, locked the doors, turned the engine over. Nothing. Dead. The whole dash lit up for a second, then died. I cursed out loud, fumbling for my phone. No signal, but the timer still worked. It was 10:04 p.m. I sat there, breathing heavy, trying to convince myself this wasn't real. Just tired, just forest tricks. Maybe something in the coffee, and then tapping from the passenger side window. I turned, heart in my throat. Nothing there, but something had tapped. Once. Then twice. Slow, deliberate. I wiped the fog from the window. There, just outside the glass, was an eye. Not a human eye, not animal. It blinked once and vanished. The truck engine roared back to life without me touching the key. The headlights flicked on, and I saw them. The trees were covered in them. The bark full of eyes. Dozens, maybe hundreds, growing out of the trunks like tumors. They blinked in clusters, some fast, some slow, some crying black sap, others twitching unnaturally, rolling in their sockets. I floored the accelerator. The tires spun for a second, then caught. I sped down the road, praying it would end. But the road didn't end. I drove for 30 minutes, then 60. My odometer told me I'd traveled 47 miles, but the scenery never changed. Same twisted trees, same blinking eyes, no side roads, no signs, no turnarounds. At 12:22 a.m., I passed the same wooden sign again. Do not look into the trees. My fuel gauge hadn't moved. I lost it, slammed the brakes. Opened the door and screamed into the woods. What do you want? What are you? Silence. Then a whisper, barely audible, but it came from all directions. It wasn't in a language I understood, just a sound, a pattern, like blinking. I realized in horror it was Morse code. I grabbed my phone, pulled up a Morse translator, and started listening. One word repeated again and again. Stay. I got back in and drove. I don't remember much after that, just that around 3:13 a.m., my GPS buzzed. Signal returned. I looked up, and I was back on Route 95. No blinking eyes, just the sound of crickets. I pulled over, shaking, checked my phone again. Signal strong, time synced, everything normal. I rushed to the nearest truck stop. When I stepped inside, the cashier stared at me. You okay, man? I must have looked like hell. I went to the bathroom, washed my face, and then I saw it, on my neck, 3 tiny red dots, in a straight line, like claw marks or fingers. I tried to explain to my dispatcher what happened. She swore up and down. There's no Route 344 in Idaho. I checked Google Maps, checked physical maps, nothing. Even the GPS logs from my truck, gone, corrupted. But the dash cam, it recorded exactly 5 minutes. Then static. The last frame, the trees, blinking. It's been 8 months. I haven't driven at night since. But sometimes, just sometimes, when I drive past forests or woodlands in the day, I catch something, shimmering, like eyes. And they blink, in perfect sync. Once, twice, always in threes. And I swear to God, they're getting closer. If you ever find yourself on a road that isn't on any map, and you see eyes in the trees, don't stop, don't blink, and for the love of God, don't look into the trees. Story 7, Reverse Lullaby. October 3rd, 2022, New Mexico desert. Told from the perspective of truck driver Nick Lawson. I've been a trucker for almost 11 years. You don't last that long on the road unless you know when to ignore the weird stuff. Flickering headlights, strange reflections in the rear view, gas station cashiers who never blink. You let it slide, you move on. But what happened on October 3rd, 2022? I haven't moved on from that, not even close. That night something sang to me, and it's still singing. I was hired by a third-party logistics contractor to transport a sealed cargo container from a decommissioned facility in northern New Mexico to a storage depot just south of El Paso, Texas. Nothing unusual about the cargo manifest. Weight listed at 3,200 lbs, container marked "Do Not Open," audio hazard. Audio hazard? That caught my eye. I even joked about it with the guy overseeing the pickup. He didn't laugh, just handed me the paperwork and said, "Whatever you do, keep moving, and don't listen too hard." He walked off before I could ask more. The trailer was already attached when I got there. Old military style, riveted steel, air vents welded shut, no windows, no locks I could open. I backed my rig up, secured everything, and hit the road around 10:20 p.m. My GPS route had been uploaded in advance. The file wasn't standard. It had its own icon. Looked like a tuning fork. Weird, but I've seen worse with military subcontractors. It was a quiet night. Moonless, bone dry, no traffic for miles. I had a thermos of gas station coffee and a playlist of blues loaded up. The miles ticked by easy, until the humming started. It was 10:45 p.m. when I first noticed it. A low vibration, not mechanical, not like anything from the truck itself. It was coming from the trailer. I turned the music down, thinking maybe something had shifted. The sound was musical, almost like a song. No, not almost. It was a lullaby, only it was playing in reverse. Imagine the sound of an old cassette tape being rewound, but slower, smoother, melodic. It sounded like a woman humming, soft, gentle, but backward, notes falling upward like a lullaby unraveling itself. It made the hairs on my arms stand up. I opened the window to make sure it wasn't wind distortion. Nope. The humming got clearer. I pulled over, got out, and walked around to the trailer. Silence. I pressed my ear to the metal. Nothing. But the moment I got back into the cab and started driving again, the lullaby returned. At first, I tried to explain it away. Maybe a hidden speaker inside? Some old calibration system malfunctioning? But it didn't feel like sound. It felt like presence, like something inside was aware of the motion and singing because of it. By 11:30 p.m., I started getting a headache, not a normal one. It pulsed in rhythm with the hum, a pressure at the base of my skull, like fingers tapping from the inside out. Then came the dreams. I didn't fall asleep. I was driving, eyes open, hands on the wheel. But I started seeing things. Out of the corners of my eyes, flashes of a dark room, a crib covered in vines, wallpaper peeling backward, shadows dancing on the ceiling, but upside down. And the song, always the song. It looped endlessly, never the same melody twice, always backward. At 12:07 a.m., my GPS started glitching. The blue route line began bending, then circling. It told me to turn around. Rerouting, it said, voice distorted. Rerouting. I shut it off. Whatever this was, it wasn't a glitch. Around 12:30 a.m., I hit a rest stop. Empty, just a row of broken vending machines and a bathroom with no lights. I got out, pacing, trying to shake off the buzzing in my skull. And that's when I noticed the markings on the pavement behind my trailer. Chalk. Someone had written a single sentence behind my rear tires. "Don't sing it backward." I spun around. No cars, no people, nothing but desert. I ran back to the cab. As I climbed in, I caught a glimpse of the trailer's side in the mirror. Something was pressed against the inner wall, a shape, just for a moment, like a child's hand. 5 fingers, then gone. The humming grew louder. By 1 a.m., the lullaby wasn't just humming, it had words. Backmasked phrases, like audio tapes reversed. I could pick out syllables, vowels stretching, soft consonants. It wasn't English, it wasn't any language I knew, but my brain was starting to recognize it. I began to hum along. That terrified me. I turned the radio on. Full blast, static. Every station, even satellite. And then, my own voice came through the speakers, singing the lullaby. In reverse. I shut everything off, pulled over, vomited in the dirt. At 1:45 a.m., I tried calling dispatch. No signal. I checked the paperwork again, looking for emergency contacts. That's when I saw the original pickup address, a defunct government facility listed as Operation Lullaby, terminated 2007. I Googled it. Nothing came up. But I did find an old forum thread archived on Wayback. Operation Lullaby, Psychological Warfare Audio Tests, New Mexico. It mentioned a project to study lullabies as neurological weapons, particularly backward melodies. Early tests allegedly caused insomnia, hallucinations, memory loss. One line stood out. Subjects exposed for more than 3 hours began to harmonize involuntarily. I checked the clock. I'd been driving for 3 hours and 25 minutes. Then something inside the trailer knocked, just once, then twice, rhythmic, soft, like knocking on a cradle. I screamed, "Who's in there?" No answer, only the song. It was louder now, clear. I could almost make out lyrics. I knew if I kept listening, I'd start to understand. I didn't want to understand. 2:12 a.m., I passed a mirror. Not a normal mirror, a roadside truck weigh station that had one of those wide security mirrors attached to the corner. As I drove past, I looked in and saw a second cab attached to my trailer in reverse. My truck, identical but mirrored, was driving backward, eyes staring out the windshield, humming the song. I blinked. It was gone. I floored it. El Paso was only 60 miles away. I dropped this cursed cargo off and never asked questions again. But at 2:49 a.m., the humming stopped. Silence. Total. No wind, no engine sound, no tire noise. I glanced at the dashboard. Everything was dead. The speedometer read 0 even though I was still moving. The clock was frozen at 2:49 a.m. And the trailer, it began singing forward. The lullaby, now clear, melodic, sweet, played the right way. That's when I started crying, because I knew the song. It was the same lullaby my mother sang to me as a child. My hands moved on their own. I started tapping the steering wheel, matching the rhythm. My lips moved. I began to sing, word for word. And I realized, I wasn't singing forward. I was singing in reverse, and it felt right. 3:13 a.m. The trailer door swung open on its own. I didn't stop the truck, didn't slow down, just watched in the mirror as the door creaked wide. Inside was nothing, just darkness. And then movement. A crib sliding gently back and forth, a mobile turning above it, shaped like musical notes. A child's voice whispered from the open air. Again, the song restarted. I arrived at the delivery point at 3:27 a.m. An empty field, no depot, no structure, just a single sign stuck into the dirt. We only store silence. Below that in spray paint, not what sings backward. The truck powered down. I sat there for an hour, then 2. The sun never rose. The clock still read 2:49 a.m. I walked around to the back of the trailer. It was sealed tight again. But this time, there was a message scratched into the metal. First verse complete, preparing next. I tried to unhitch the trailer, but the locks wouldn't budge. They weren't physical anymore, just smooth metal. No seams, no handles, like it had grown shut. Eventually, I drove away, left the trailer there in the empty field. But I kept hearing the song on the radio, in gas station music. Once, in the static between 2 channels, I heard my mother's voice singing, "Hush, little baby, don't say a word." Then in reverse, it's been over a year. I don't drive at night anymore, but sometimes when the house is quiet, I hear it from the walls, a lullaby, hummed backward, and my body responds. My fingers tap, my lips move, I harmonize. And the worst part? Every time I sing it, I remember more. The crib, the song, the eyes in the mobile. And I wonder if I ever really delivered that trailer, or if I'm still inside it, rocking, rocking, rocking. If you ever hear music where there shouldn't be any, if it sounds sweet but wrong, like it's unraveling, don't listen, don't hum, and above all, don't sing it back. Story 8, Delivery for the End, February 29th, 2024. Northern Nevada told from the perspective of truck driver Eli Monroe. You drive long enough, and the road starts to blur. Mile markers become meaningless. Time slips, memories fade. But some things, some deliveries, you remember with painful clarity. This is mine. It started with a job that shouldn't have existed and ended, well, I'm not sure it ever really ended. I was parked overnight outside Carson City, Nevada, at a truck stop so empty it might as well have been abandoned. The usual routine, black coffee, bitter cigarettes, and the low hum of a cooling engine. It was a leap year, February 29th, 2024. That alone should have tipped me off. At exactly 7:15 p.m., I got an email. No subject line, no sender, just a single PDF attached, a delivery order. I opened it. Pickup location, Facility 12X, Walker Basin drop-off, Exit 0, Highway Null Payload ID, ELIM 2024. Instructions, no stops, no questions. No confirmation needed. Payment on completion, $12,000 signed, the end. I blinked at that last part, thought it was a joke, but the routing file auto-downloaded to my truck's GPS, and a notification popped up on my banking app. A $6,000 deposit, First half, up front. I should have declined. Instead, I muttered easy money, lit another smoke, and started the engine. Facility 12X was listed on no map I had, but the GPS took me straight to it. A narrow road branched off into a dry basin, surrounded by jagged hills and the cracked remnants of something military. Faded warning signs, torn fences, a chain gate left open. There was no staff, no lights, just a rusted-out trailer sitting quietly between two collapsing hangars. Inside was a single crate, 4 feet by 4 feet, marked with my initials, already loaded, already bolted down. As I hooked it to my rig, I noticed something carved into the steel plating. "This is your final route." I hit the road at 8:22 p.m. The GPS, now completely taken over by the null route file, displayed a single line on a pitch-black map. No towns, no exits, no names. Just a straight shot southeast into nothing. The deeper I drove, the quieter the world became. By 9 p.m., radio signals dropped. By 9:30, the stars disappeared. Not from clouds, from absence. It was like the sky had shut off. And then came the first sign, a literal one. White lettering on a metal plate, nailed crooked to a post in the dirt. "Almost done." I kept going. At 10:12 p.m., the road narrowed. Asphalt gave way to gravel. The trees lining the path began to bend slightly inward, like leaning toward me, watching. Then came the hum. It wasn't the engine. It came from the crate. I pulled over, stepped outside, placed my hand on the cargo, vibrating, faintly, like a heartbeat under metal. I leaned in and heard something, no, someone, breathing. I staggered back, but the hum stopped. I considered calling dispatch, but when I opened the logbook screen, my history was wiped clean. No records, no ID, no trip history. The only thing showing, current delivery, final. Around 11:03 p.m., my dash lights began flickering. The GPS rotated, then pointed backward. The screen read, rerouting to origin. ETA 007. Then the screen went black. The crate started humming again, this time with a rhythm. Not mechanical, not musical, more like code. I turned on my CB radio. Silence. Then static. Then softly. "You've already delivered so much in life, Eli. This is just your last stop." I floored it. The road dissolved beneath me, but the rig kept moving. No resistance, no sound, just the motion of something gliding forward through space that no longer existed. And then I saw them. Signs, one after another. No logos, no mile markers, just plain text. "You're almost home. One last mile. You're doing great, Eli. Don't be afraid. This is what you're for." Signed, The End. Midnight hit, but the clocks froze at 12:20 a.m. Time no longer advanced. I looked in the side mirror and saw a second rig behind me, identical to mine. I couldn't remember when it started following me. I watched its headlights flicker in rhythm with the crate. I pressed harder on the gas, but it kept pace perfectly. At 12:44 a.m., the road finally ended. Abruptly, just a cliff, a flat, empty plateau stretching out under a sky with no stars. In the middle, a single wooden post, nailed to it, a paper sign. "Thank you, Eli." I stopped the truck, got out. Cold wind, no sound. Behind me, the second rig vanished. Ahead, and the crate began to glow faintly. A screen slid out of the dashboard. It read, "Delivery complete name, Eli Monroe, payload ID, Eli M. 2024. Signed, The End." I walked to the back of the trailer. The doors opened without my touch. Inside was nothing. Just an old leather binder sitting on the floor. I opened it. Inside, a stack of delivery receipts, all with different names, all signed The End, one per driver, all dated February 29th, every 4 years. stretching back to 1960, and the top page, freshly printed, was mine. I flipped it over, scrawled in my own handwriting, "When the end comes, deliver it in silence." I don't remember driving away or arriving home, but when I woke up the next morning, my truck was parked neatly outside a diner in Utah. No trailer, no log of the trip, no money in my account. Only one thing in the glove box: the binder, still warm, still humming. That was 6 weeks ago, and now every night at 12:44 a.m., I receive a ping on my dashboard. Delivery in progress. The screen turns black. The truck powers down, and I hear something behind me, breathing. I don't know what I delivered. I don't know who signed it. I only know this: when your time comes, you won't get a warning. You'll just get the order, and it'll be signed the same way. Story 9. Stars That Don't Belong. September 9th, 2023. Highway 212, Montana, told from the perspective of trucker Raymond Kessler. You ever look up at the stars and feel like they're watching back? Not in the poetic way. I mean really watching, judging, waiting. I didn't believe in that crap. Not until the night the sky opened, just for 1 second, and I saw what was on the other side. Now every time I glance up, I feel them looking down. And I know, those stars don't belong here. My name's Raymond Kessler. I've been hauling freight for over 30 years. Most nights it's just me, the hum of the engine, and a black ribbon of road stretching ahead into nothing. On September 9th, 2023, I was hauling a load of meteorological sensors and climate equipment to a remote research facility near the Montana-Canada border. Nothing fancy, but high value. The kind of shipment that came wrapped in government paperwork and enough warning labels to choke a horse. I left Billings around 1:00 a.m., hoping to beat a storm system that was pushing in from the west. The air was thick, the kind of dense silence that presses on your ears. Even the bugs weren't chirping. The GPS routed me along Highway 212, long, empty stretches of asphalt lined by pine forests and the occasional cliff edge. Just me in the dark. By 3:11 a.m., I was deep in the backcountry. That's when the sky broke. It happened in silence. No thunder, no flash, just a tear. 1 second, everything was normal. The next, the sky above my truck ripped open down the middle like someone unzipping a bag. It didn't glow. It didn't roar. It was clean, a perfect vertical seam that opened. And behind it, I saw stars. But not our stars. The constellations were wrong, too symmetrical. Some of them moved, turning slowly in place. One massive shape dominated the center. A black void surrounded by orbiting lights, like an eye, blinking. And then, snap, it was gone. The sky stitched itself back together like nothing ever happened. I slammed the brakes and skidded to a stop in the middle of the highway. Got out of the cab, nearly tripping on the gravel shoulder. The forest was dead silent. The air smelled like burnt plastic. And then my truck made a sound I'll never forget. The dashboard inside let out a soft chime, not the usual ding. It was a tone I'd never heard, followed by a voice, mechanical and hollow. Correction in progress. Please remain unaware. I froze. Correction? Unaware? I checked the dash. All gauges were reset. The GPS showed I was off-road, somewhere 26 miles northwest of where I'd been. The odometer was blank. Back inside, I killed the engine and turned it back on. Everything rebooted like normal, except the clock. It still read 3:11 a.m. No matter how long I drove after that, it didn't change. It stayed 3:11. I began to feel unmoored. 30 minutes later, I passed a roadside way station, deserted, but something about the security mirror by the door made me slow down. It reflected my truck, but not me. In the mirror, the cab was empty. I stared at it for several seconds. And then, movement. My reflection, or whatever it was, turned to look directly at me. The figure in the driver's seat stared, motionless, as I sat paralyzed outside the real truck. It blinked once, then the image vanished. I didn't stop again until I reached a gas station clinging to the edge of a canyon. It had one pump, one light, and an old man with a smoker's rasp who ran the place. I stepped inside, still shaken. The old guy barely looked up. "You see it?" he asked. I froze mid-step. "What?" "The tear," he said. "Most folks don't make it this far when they do. Most turn around." I didn't know what to say. He lit a cigarette with a shaking hand and exhaled into the stale air. "I saw it back in '84. Thought it was just a dream, but I kept driving. And now I never really stop." He reached under the counter and handed me a folded piece of paper. I opened it. Scrawled in thick black marker, "Some skies aren't meant for us." I left without paying for the coffee. Didn't matter. He didn't seem to care. Back on the road, the stars had returned. Normal stars, familiar constellations. But something was off, slightly misaligned, like the sky had been taken down and put back up a half-inch to the left. At 4:44 a.m., I reached the delivery site. A chain-link fence, 2 antennas, and a guard shack with nobody inside. I backed into the bay and popped the rear. The researchers, 5 of them, white lab coats and clipped accents, didn't ask me to help unload. They just scanned the manifest, nodded and signed the pad. I looked at the clipboard. In the signature field, the "I confirms." I looked up, startled. One of the scientists gave me a hard, almost pitying look. "You saw it," she said, not a question. I nodded. She handed me a sealed envelope. "You'll need this." I didn't open it until I was miles away. Inside was a photograph, taken from a thermal imaging satellite. The timestamp, 3:11 a.m., September 9th, 2023. The image, a vertical split in the atmosphere 300 feet wide. From it, heat signatures spiraled outward, forming symbols that matched no known language. On the back, someone had written, "You weren't supposed to see the alignment, but now that you have, it will remember." I got back on the highway, checked the clock. Still 3:11 a.m. Still, even now. That was 3 nights ago. I haven't slept since. Every time I close my eyes, I see those stars, spinning, shifting, staring. And when I check the night sky, I swear the constellations keep changing. Tiny differences. An extra star here, a missing one there. Last night, Orion was upside down. I checked my dash cam. That second, when the sky tore, should have been recorded. But instead, the footage cuts to static, and then one frame remains. Just one. It's my face reflected in the windshield, but with eyes completely black. Not empty, just full of something else. And the voice, that damn voice, it's back. It hums softly through the radio static, whispers from the speakers, even when they're off. "Correction in progress. Please remain unaware." But I'm aware, too aware. And that's the problem. If you're reading this, take my advice. If you're ever out there, somewhere quiet and black and deep, and the sky splits open, even just for a second, look away. Don't stare, because some stars don't belong. And if you see them once, they'll never stop looking back. Story 10, mile marker 72. He never left that road. August 21st, 2023, Highway 41, New Mexico. Told from the perspective of trucker Caleb Mercer. I've always said the desert doesn't get enough credit for being terrifying. Most folks think horror lives in forests or cities, where shadows hide in basements or ghosts cling to the trees. But out here, in the endless stretch of New Mexico asphalt, it's not what's hiding that gets you. It's what never left. It was a Monday morning, technically. August 21st, 2023. I was hauling a shipment of lithium battery packs to Phoenix. The route took me down Highway 41, a desolate two-lane that cuts through the northern desert like a scar. No lights, no stations, just silence. I'd been on the road for 5 hours already, and the clock on my dash said 2:13 a.m. That time, I remember exactly, because at 2:14 a.m., everything changed. I passed mile marker 72, and there he was. The man stood just off the shoulder, thumb out, like a classic hitchhiker from some black and white film, dressed in faded denim, trucker cap, and boots caked in dust. He didn't wave or call out, just waited. I don't usually stop for strangers. Not out here. Too many weirdos. But something about him, I can't explain it. I hit the brakes. My trailer hissed behind me as the truck groaned to a stop. He walked up, calm and casual, and opened the passenger door. "Appreciate it," he said. "Been waiting since 72. I blinked. "Come again?" He smiled. "Since 1972. Right here. Same spot." I stared at him. He didn't seem crazy. Didn't seem confused. He just seemed tired. We drove in silence for a while. I couldn't help glancing at him from time to time. His clothes were out of date. Not retro, but original. His hat had a faded gas company logo I hadn't seen in decades. His boots looked like they'd been repaired a dozen times with tape and wire. He stared ahead, unmoving, like he knew this stretch of road by heart. Eventually I asked, "So what do you mean you've been waiting since 72? He chuckled. "Well, that's when I got stuck, ain't it? I was running a load out of Fort Sumner, supposed to head west, but this stretch didn't let me go." "You mean you broke down?" He turned slowly toward me. "No, I mean this road doesn't let go." At 2:35 a.m., my GPS froze. Not unusual in dead zones. I tapped it, trying to reboot. No luck. The screen blinked, then changed routes entirely. My location pins spun in circles. The ETA switched to... I looked over at the man. Henry, he'd said his name was. Henry Owens. "You ever see a sign say Loop Junction?" he asked suddenly. "Nope." "Exactly." I glanced around. Nothing but dark desert and road. No signs, no radio, no cell towers. And mile marker 72? He leaned in. "It ain't supposed to be there." My hands gripped the wheel tighter. I told myself I'd driven this road before, that I knew these hills, these stretches of silence, the dry air, the rolling dust. But something felt different now. Slower, heavy. My clock still read 2:13 a.m. Henry reached into his coat and pulled out a folded photo. "Take a look," he said, handing it to me. It was a picture of a rig. Big classic Kenworth W900, paint chipped, sitting off the side of the road. The background was unmistakable. Same highway, same shoulder, same cactus, and in front of the truck, a young man in denim. It was him, but the photo was dated August 21st, 1972. "Taken right before I disappeared," he said. My stomach twisted. "People looked," he added. "Cops, my wife, company sent a search crew, but they never found me, 'cause I never left." We passed a gas station I didn't remember. The sign was rusted beyond recognition. The pump hoses dangled like dead limbs. The windows were shattered. Henry whispered, "I've seen this place 500 times. "What do you mean?" "I drive with someone like you every few years. Someone who can see me." We passed mile 72. I ride a while, then I vanish again. I laugh nervously. "So what happens next? You disappear? I wake up in a ditch?" He didn't answer. Just looked at the road and muttered, "Some folks become part of the road. Others just pass through. You'll know which one you are soon." At 3:02 a.m., the lights in my cab flickered. Then the radio turned on, by itself. It played a song I hadn't heard since I was a child, "Gentle on My Mind" by Glenn Campbell. I turned to ask Henry if he'd done something, but the seat was empty. I hit the brakes, swerved onto the shoulder, got out, looked around. No footprints, no dust disturbed, no sign anyone had ever sat beside me. I climbed back in, shaken. The clock still said 2:13 a.m. I drove forward another mile, past a road sign, white letters on rusted steel. Welcome to Loop Junction, Esther 1972. Population 1. I slammed the brakes again. How the hell had I missed this before? I looked in the rear view. No sign, no town, just desert. I reached under the seat, searching for the photo he'd given me. It was gone. In its place, a yellowed envelope. Inside, a faded driver's license. Name, Henry Lee Owens. Date of birth, 1938. Status, deceased. August 21st, 1972. I drove the rest of the night with the windows down, music off. The silence was unbearable. Every time I glanced in the mirror, I half expected to see him again. But there was only me, alone. I made the drop in Phoenix by 9 a.m. The foreman there was gruff, impatient. You look like hell, he said. Rough night. Yeah, I replied. He smirked. You see mile marker 72? I froze. What? He wiped his hands on a rag. Everyone who's driven that stretch long enough sees it eventually. Some say it's haunted. Some say it's a time slip. Others think it's a loop, a wrinkle in the world. He leaned in close. But the ones who talk to him? I swallowed. He grinned. They never really leave. That was 4 days ago. I tried to check the dash cam footage. Corrupted. Tried to find any record of a loop junction. Nothing. But yesterday I got a letter in the mail. No stamp, no return address. Inside, a photo. Me and Henry, sitting side by side in my truck, smiling. I burned the picture, but I can still see it in my mind. And every time I drive that route, I feel it pulling, like something unfinished is waiting there. And I know someday soon, I'll stop at mile marker 72 again. And this time, I might not come back, because some roads don't just lead somewhere. They keep you. If you ever see a man in denim by the side of a desert road, if he says he's been waiting since 1972, don't stop, don't look back, and whatever you do, don't let him in. And that brings us to the end of tonight's story. So, what do you think? Was it simply exhaustion playing tricks on the mind, a coincidence too strange to ignore, or did something truly unexplainable happen on that lonely highway? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I read as many as I can, and I'd love to hear your theory. If you enjoyed tonight's story, please like this video. Subscribe to No Sleep Stories. And turn on notifications so you never miss a new nightmare. We upload fresh horror stories regularly, from haunted highways and paranormal encounters to terrifying true inspired tales that will keep you awake long after midnight. If you're not ready to sleep just yet, there's another story waiting for you right here on the channel. Until next time, I'm Thomas. Stay safe, keep the lights on, and whatever you do, don't look back.